Hello, my name is Michael Chagnon, and I'm a curator at the Aga Khan Museum. Now, for me, there are some paintings that are like great novels or great films, and I find myself returning to them again and again, taking in details I hadn't noticed before or simply spending time thinking about them. And so today I wanted to share one such painting with you from the Aga Khan Museum's collection. Executed on a single sheet of paper by an artist identified in a signature as Kamal, the painting depicts a woman standing by the bank of a pond, holding a cloth around her hips, but otherwise unclothed. It was probably made in late 16th century Iran. At some point after its completion, it was likely mounted in a muraqa, or album, with other works of art, although today it survives independently. With its subject of a beautiful woman, the painting fits well within the tradition of Persian single-sheet painting of the 16th and 17th centuries, which often depict alluring individual figures, though they are typically clothed. In fact, the woman's semi-nude state is one clue that the artist, Kamal, did not intend to merely create a generic depiction of a bathing beauty. Another is the deep blue color of the woman's cloth, which, despite some loss to the pigment over the years, continues to boldly draw our eyes. Together, these details would have immediately prompted viewers in 16th century Iran to identify the woman with Shirin, the female protagonist of the romantic tale Khosrow and Shirin. Composed by the poet Nizami in the late 12th century, the story recounts the tragic love affair of the Iranian king Khosrow and the Armenian queen Shirin, one of the most cherished tales in the Persian language. At the beginning of the story, the two protagonists fall in love, remarkably without having met one another. Khosrow falls in love with Shirin based solely on a description of her beauty, while Shirin falls in love with Khosrow upon seeing a painted portrait of him. Nizami goes on to describe how the two besotted lovers set out on horseback to find one another. For Khosrow, this is an opportune moment. Political disturbances are unfolding back home, and it's probably best to take some time away until things settle down. He disguises himself, donning robes in colors other than red, his signature look, and he slips away unrecognized. At the same time, however, Shirin sets out, having been told that she'd be able to easily recognize Khosrow from his red garments. It's in this way that the poet Nizami sets up the lovers' first encounter, one of the most famous scenes in all of Persian literature. Here, Shirin has paused her search, stopping by a natural spring to bathe. Just as she dips into the water wearing only a deep blue wrap, Khosrow happens upon the scene. From afar, he sees the beautiful woman and begins gazing upon her with desire. Shirin looks up and notices the figure. Startled, she covers herself demurely and flees, while Khosrow averts his gaze in shame. Intriguingly, neither one recognizes the other, though significantly, Nizami goes on to write that Shirin spends the rest of the day pondering whether the man she saw may have actually been her beloved Khosrow. The thing is, he wasn't wearing red. By the 15th century, illustrators of the story had established a standard compositional format to depict the scene, showing a mounted Khosrow gazing down upon an unwitting Shirin, seated in a pool and wrapped in her blue cloth. Later artists subsequently rehashed this composition many times, transforming it into one of the most commonly illustrated and easily recognized images in the Persian artistic tradition. Here I'm showing just one example from a Nizami manuscript in the Aga Khan Museum collection, dated 1527. This is all to say that Kamal's single-sheet painting of a semi-nude woman standing by the banks of a pool and holding a telltale blue cloth around her hips would have almost certainly been recognized by contemporary viewers as an allusion to this most famous scene from Nizami's story. But it is just as certain that viewers would have noticed the painter's alterations to the prototype. Instead of showing Shirin being gazed down upon and looking up at Khosrow, she now looks directly out at us, the viewer outside the painting. In other words, we now occupy the place of the peeping Khosrow. Moreover, Kamal's version of Shirin seems rather less demure than Nizami's. Instead of looking away, she returns our gaze and holds it, all while handling the blue cloth in an ambiguous and tantalizing manner. Is she actually concealing herself? With these artistic manipulations, Kamal places us right at the very edge of a psychological and artistic drama. This is the moment when Shirin must take action to cover up and flee from an unsolicited gaze upon her figure. And yet, here in this picture, she hesitates. Perhaps the idea is just beginning to percolate in the back of her mind that her spectator may actually be the one that she herself is seeking. Is she just beginning to recognize us as Khosrow, though we may not look quite like what she expected? In the end, Kamal's picture performs one final twist upon the tradition. With all of its seductive charms, it in fact returns us to the very beginning of the story. Now it is we, instead of Shirin, who fall in love with a painting.